Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. Now, I can control a lot of things in my life, but I can't necessarily control nature. So, as you can see, the lights coming in from my window, and you may hear the odd cockerel crow, because although I'm usually based in the UK, one of the things this new normal has created for me is an opportunity to work from my parents' hometown, which is or home country, which is Antigua and Barbuda. So I have had the pleasure of being able to deliver Middlesex University courses and continue my usual work from my home country of Antigua and still do what I'm able to do. So I'm hoping that that in itself is an example. What I may do is swap over to my other screen, which has got a better background so you won't get the glare of the light as we go through if this becomes an issue. So hopefully by now I can share stuff with you. Can I get the system so that I can send everybody a copy of the handout, please? And what I'll do is while I'm doing that, I'll start sharing my screen. Okay, so it's been an interesting time for all of us, but nobody can say it's been without challenges. So what I'm hoping to do for the next 15 minutes or so, and Robert, can I ask you to send everybody a copy of the notebook?
Yes, of course, I can do that. Not a problem at all.
Thank you. So what I'm hoping to do for the next 15 minutes ago is to think about what it means to talk about organizational readiness and to think about an approach that you can start going to use to start to map and create your organizational technological landscape. But one of the things that came up very early in the keynote speeches is this need to take action. So we'll spend some time looking at what you need to do in terms of taking action before the questions and answers. So I got really excited when I was listening to all the speakers because so much of what has been said, we've all said and created separately, but when you put it together, it's giving us the same message. And one of the things that came out for me was this whole understanding of what it means to be ready. And what it means to be ready in many ways is understanding your habits, not only your personal habits, but your organization's cultural habits and how you go towards problem solving. Because one thing this situation has taught us is that nothing will ever be the same again. So this idea that what is in the old can be used and just recycled can no longer be taken into consideration. Now, this is a key concern to me because as a lecturer at Middlesex for over 20 years, I've taught lots of theory. And as one of your previous speakers was saying, theory without practice doesn't enable people to develop the skill sets that enables them to put that theory into practice. So spending my time working in South Africa to develop my doctorate, I became very aware of the localization agenda and got very scared that people like me from the UK would be left out. So I started to look for ways that I could begin to engage in that localization agenda. So much of what I'm sharing with you today is based on that and based on the way of thinking. And that's why this whole idea of being ready in terms of culture is key for me. Because we can talk about what we give the organization as HR. But what about us? Are we ready? Were we ready for what came at us a year ago? So when we talk about that and when we try and look at how ready we were, I found this theoretical model that I thought may be of use to you. And it identifies the different types of readiness that have been identified to be able to take the most of digital innovation. Robert should have shared with you by now a notebook. And I'm hoping that as an academic, I'm sorry, but I'm hoping that you use this as a tool to capture some of your thinking of some of the ideas that have emerged throughout this conference and look at ways that you can begin to share that not only with your team, but with the wider organization. In that notebook, you will see some hints about the things that you need to be looking at when you're thinking about organizational readiness. So very much, I hope the next 15, 30 minutes, however long we get to spend together, is about you beginning to capture your thoughts and to use some of the tools that have been selected so that you can contain your thinking in a way that's useful for you when you go back into the workplace. So I have a video, and we may not have time to show all of this, but this is a video that the World Health Organization drew up. And what I wanted to illustrate with this video is how much time we were being told about what was coming our way. And as much as we were talking in the organizations and being aware of it, it wasn't until we actually had no choice that we started to make the move. If we're actually going to learn anything, the most important thing that we can learn is that we always need to be ready. So there's in your notebook, there's a little column where you'll see each of those resource readiness criteria put together. What I want you to do is to think of some of the stories that you can think of that link to each one of those hints. Just some stories, some ideas, some words, anything that comes to you. If you can't fill all of the boxes, that's not a problem. Over to you. You can play the video.
Devastating epidemic can start
Look at the dates.
at any time and kill millions of people because we're not prepared. Because
what were you doing in 2018? What about 2019? (2020)
Epidemiologic investigations are underway, but yes, it's certainly possible that there's limited human-to-human transmission.
I'm declaring a public health emergency of international concern over the global outbreak of novel coronavirus. We have a window of opportunity. While the number of cases, more than 99%, are in China, in the rest of the world, we only have 176 cases. Let's use this window of opportunity to really invest in prevention, to invest in control, and prevent this virus from spreading. It's time to act. The detection of this small number of cases could be the spark that becomes a bigger fire. And if the world doesn't want to wake up and consider this enemy virus as public enemy number one, I don't think we will learn from our lessons.
We have over 400 scientists. There's been huge global interest in this topic and a real desire to collaborate and contribute.
Our window of opportunity is narrowing, and that's why we called the international community to act.
We've had enough countries now import disease. It is time to prepare. It is time to do everything you would do in preparing for a pandemic.
All countries can be looking for cases right now. All countries can be aggressively finding those first cases and following those contacts over time.
shortages are leaving doctors, nurses, and other frontline health workers dangerously ill-equipped to care for COVID-19 patients. This is not a drill. This is not the time to give up. This is a time for pulling out all the stops. We're deeply concerned both by the alarming levels of spread and severity and by the alarming levels of inaction. We have therefore made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic. Not testing alone, not contact tracing alone, not quarantine alone, not social distancing alone. Do it all. You cannot fight a fire blindfolded, and we cannot stop this pandemic if we don't know who is infected. We have a simple message for all countries: test, test, test.
We must get back to be able to control this virus, live with this virus, develop the vaccines that we need to finally eradicate this virus.
Please work across party lines, across ideology, across beliefs, across any differences for that matter. That's how we can defeat this virus.
We've got a brand new iPhone 12.
Yeah, that one's not, that bit's not part of the video. Okay. So what I'm hoping that you took from that video is that it brought up some memories that for some people they may choose to forget, but we are still living through it. And for many countries, while some people are getting a grip on it, some people are still living through it and going through it. And so what I want people to do is not think that because we seem to have a handle on it, because we have some vaccines, that this means a return to what was there before. Things will never, ever be the same before. We must prepare ourselves so that we're never caught out like this again, where our economies, our business will not be able to withstand that, and HR can't continually trying to prepare people. One of the things that's clear, and I'm sharing these feelings with you, is just so that you're aware of the myriad of feelings that people went through during that time and are still going through, whether or not it's in individual families, individual organizations, or as countries. As human beings, we are all going through this. But HR is supposed to be able to deal with all of this while we're dealing with our own stuff. And sometimes we're so used to giving that we don't take enough time to look and see how things have affected us. So within this organization, I found this and I thought it was a bit funny. I hope you share my sense of humor. We get a sense of all these different people reacting all differently to how situations happen. And HR is supposed to walk in on its charger and its magic wand and solve all the problems. Well, if anybody has found the ability to do that, please share it with the world because we all need it. One of the things that I think came up very much in the conversations that all the speakers were having was the importance of mindset. So what I've put together here, not knowing what everybody was going to say, which is why I was talking about how all these ideas are coming together, is this concept of fixed growth and benefit mindsets. Now, all of these mindsets are included in an organization. But for many of us, the fixed mindset was the way we always did things, which is why one of your speakers was talking about what things would do, being able to monitor people, rather than focusing on the growth mindset where most of us in HR have tried to sit. And we're now moving on to this concept of a benefit mindset, where the individual and the growth mindsets are put together. And very much your speakers today were talking about you need to focus on the mindset of the people. So if I'm going to advise you to do two things, and as I said, these two things have come out time and time again in these conversations, it's who you have and what you have, all right? I have spent lots of time over the past 15 years looking at ways that you can support organizations to do this themselves without the cost of expensive consultants or the rest of it. I have the privilege of being able to have students who are eager to learn and want to learn new things. But within organizations, you need to focus your efforts on what you do and what you have. The rest of the world has got some really good ideas going on and really good things. But unless you find out where you're starting from, you're not going to be able to make the changes that you need to make the difference. So all of this starts with you, all right? Because the organization is the people. You've had that said time and time again. But if you're leading HR, if you're taking HR into the future and you haven't examined your own motivations, your own feelings, then you're not going to be able to enable other people to do it. So unless you're willing to walk the walk, don't talk the talk. Simple. Because why should I listen to you when I'm going through my trauma of all this digital world? It's new for everybody, irrespective of what their age is. Our organizations are older and therefore are built on a fixed, established and traditional systems. So it's new for everybody, irrespective of age, irrespective of where they come from the world. Everybody is learning to do things. And then you start to go and think, well, what am I going to share with my team? So in your workbook, I've created some questions that says, what are you going to take back to your team about this experience? What are you going to share with them? What are your leaders going to say? What do you think are going to be some of the attitudes? These are some of the things that will help you to get ready. These are some of the things that will know your organizational cultural habits and how you go to problem solving. So at times it may think that collaboration is better without people. You're not going to be able to access and make the most of the digital revolution or evolution, I should say, unless you begin to find new ways of working with and valuing your colleagues. So I found this 2013. So we talk about organization culture as if it's the easiest thing in the world to do. But I found this picture of Commonwealth leaders back in 2013. I imagine if I'd asked any of those leaders if they were willing to give up their culture and their identity and sacrifice that for something that was untested and unknown, that most of these people would have said no. Why would it be any different in organizations? So when you're going into organizations, you must understand your culture, because without a change in culture, all of this stuff just sits on the surface. And exactly what your colleague Tonga was saying, it goes nowhere, because the rhetoric is there, but the resources are therefore not put in to underpin the effort. Or you can get stuck in the world that I sometimes get stuck in, because as much as England is seen within the Commonwealth, I'm a Black Caribbean living in the Caribbean with an English accent. And sometimes just the misunderstanding in language and perception can make a difference. And that doesn't matter whichever country you're in. You're going to have that misunderstanding. People are going to see things differently than you do. But within the change process, that has to be embraced and seen as just part of what you do. Because if everybody saw things the right way, I'm not sure where we'd be. So if you look in your notebook now, you're going to see a section that calls Mapping Your Organizational Roadmap. One of the speakers earlier said that you need to start with mapping. So I've used the model that maps against 7 criteria. And in your workbook, in your notebook, you will see each of these criteria listed in terms of questions. You'll see each theme, and then you'll see the questions for now. And the now questions are the questions that you use to map where your organization now is in terms of your existing technology. We all know that there's things that we wish that we could have. But until you know what you're doing, you can't begin to move forward into that conversation. Once you have a clear understanding of that, at that point, you can set a digital vision. And that digital vision will outline what your organizational belief, purpose, and strategy is. And if you remember from the mindset about benefits, purpose lies at the key. If you think about what the people officer in the UK said, purpose lies at the key. So once you understand what your future value is and your future proposition, value proposition, whichever language you want to use, your next questions then move you into thinking about each of those different elements in terms of the investment for the future. And you'll see that hopefully, although we hadn't prepared this, each of the themes that I've identified have emerged throughout the conversation today. So you should have things that you want to ask, that you want to build, and that you want to grow. But it's not just enough to do the talk, as I keep on saying. And speaker after speaker has emphasized the need for communication. Communication vertically and communication horizontally. By vertically, I mean sitting on the board. And HR, I've been working in the HR field for a long time. And I'm kind of tired of HR being used to worry people, to threaten people. We have a right to sit at the table. Whether we've been arguing this for years and people didn't understand, the businesses that exist today are because of the quality and the resilience and the flexibility of their people. That gives us our right to sit at the table. Whether or not we own that right depends on the knowledge and the experiences that we accumulate to do what one of your speakers said was to speak a language. I've just finished running a 3-day simulation for HR managers on a business simulation. Very little to do with HR, all to do with profits and loss, getting loan statements, making sure that you've got market share. Because for a lot of HR people, we spent so long speaking the language of people that we've forgotten how to speak the language of business. And a lot of the time I spend speaking to the language of business. The whole idea about matrix is important. I went out and did some research in terms of UK HR market and their feelings about data and analytics. And I'm proud to be able to say that Middlesex is one of the first universities to make data and people analytics as part of their masters in HR. And we're lucky to have Professor Andrew Mayer, who's one of the leading people, and Sam Hill, who works for the CIPD, to do it. But we had to learn that producing that course was about overcoming HR's fear of numbers, because many people go into HR because it doesn't have a lot of numbers. Those games have changed. So this is why you need to think about how you use your HR technology, that you see all staff, including yourself, as digital talent. You need to push yourself to do things that you wouldn't usually do, so that when you're asking people to do the same, you understand how it feels. Speaker after speaker reminds you emotions are important. Emotions drive your actions. And I've used the 6 hats technology within your notebook to get you to start to think about your own feelings. Okay? Now, one of the things HR must do is keep up to date. Now, I put the link into one of my favorite resources here, people. And if you can access it now while I'm talking and having a conversation and just look at the transformation maps, you will get a sense of the potential it offers you as an HR practitioner to update yourself with technology in ways that most people don't know. It's a fantastic resource. And as an HR practitioner who's so fixed on looking after other people that they haven't sought to update themselves, it provides a fantastic up-to-date resource. And I know that CTO are planning to do exactly the same for you to support your learning. So while you see all current staff as digital talent, you also have got to start acquiring that digital talent. So I'm coming to the end, but we've got so used to using your text that when I started to think, well, how else can I communicate that? And I put the same words inside a Google search, these were some of the words that I came up. Means exactly the same thing, says something different. I tend to be the one in the red, if you can see, walking in the other direction. We have to have more people in the organization willing to walk in other directions, and we have to have the people in the other directions willing to accept and support them. HR, you need to get your data in place. You have valuable information about how your people coped with this situation that will help you cope with anything in the future. That we all know is a massive task. And even in that list of resilience areas, you can see that you can't do it all at one time. So as we have here, you can only eat an elephant one bite at a time. So once you've started to do all of this, please never stop. Keep measuring success. Start again, because we started to get that warning back in 2018. I can tell you before, I remember President Obama talking about we need to start thinking in the lines of what happens if. The move toward localization and producing stuff yourself is really key and important to that. But there are people like me out there who are wanting to help you, who are wanting to support you, and believe that you've got it all yourself. What you need is the support, as you would need from any colleagues, to have a conversation. Because that intersection between connecting